A day like any other. The students of Class 1C sit in bored anticipation as their teacher's lecture draws to a close, when suddenly a voice sounds over the intercom.
Welcome to the Classroom of Truth. You may call me God. Members of Class 1C, you shall all be participating in a game of survival. The one who commits a certain act will die, and the last one left alive shall be granted their freedom.
With any attempt to escape the classroom failing, panic quickly spreads through the students. Their teacher pleads with them to calm down and work together to find a way out, only for him suddenly to vanish, leaving nothing but his clothes and an echo of his final thought. If this is true, then I'll have to kill all these damn kids myself. This brings the students of Class 1C to 3 equally impossible realizations. 1, anyone who lies in the classroom will die. 2, their teacher was planning on killing them to ensure his own survival. And 3, there's no way to tell who among their classmates may be thinking the same thing, locking the students of Class 1C in a deadly game of lies and murder. This is Classroom of Truth, a story its creators describe as a battle manga of the minds, and I think that's a really interesting concept. Something that takes the drama, intensity, and excitement of a battle series, but expresses it through mind games and deception. Sounds pretty good, right? Well, here's the thing. Classroom of Truth is not a real manga, but a fictional one created by a fictional author in the 2010 series Bakuman. Bakuman is the story of 2 high schoolers, artist Moritaka Masahiro and writer Akito Takagaki. A major plot thread running through Bakuman is the 2 creators' attempt to find a style of manga that best suits their individual strengths, resulting in them making several different series over the course of the story, before they eventually refine their style into what they refer to as non-traditional battle manga of the mind, and unconventional traditional battle manga. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm just gonna call non-battle battle series. And this is what I'd like to talk about today. But to do so, we first need to have a little chat about traditional battle series. To start, I want to say that I love traditional battle series. These make up some of my favourite stories in existence, and if I'm going to be perfectly, pathetically honest, have done a lot to shape me as a person. And the reason myself, and I think so many others, are so invested in these series is because these stories are universal. From the gore-filled death battles of Fist of the North Star to the deception-based shinobi combat of Naruto, these stories all carry the core themes of struggle, conflict, and growth. Themes that anyone in any position can relate to, and so seeing those themes expressed through explosive, exciting bouts of combat, that's why I fucking love this genre. There is, however, a problem facing a lot of modern battle series, and this is something that Bakuman itself actually touches on. That traditional battle titles have existed since at least the late 70s, meaning any author wanting to create a new battle title has 4 decades of competition as well as ideas that have already been done. Meaning that in order to stand out and stay relevant, traditional battle manga have had to gradually broaden the scope of what battle even is. And you can see different series handle this problem in different ways, from the Ki Blasts of Dragon Ball Z to the Nen system of Hunter x Hunter, or the stand battles of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And JoJo is an especially interesting example here, because a lot of the later stand battles apply rules to combat that are so abstracted that it starts to feel more like a weird physical puzzle than it does anything resembling an actual fight. Where instead, battles are conducted through gambling, Super Nintendo, or mind games. And yet still, these non-battles have all the same drama and intensity of a regular fight scene. to the point where we can start to see how it's possible to even remove the idea of combat from battles entirely, and yet still retain those core themes and feelings of excitement that make the genre so worthwhile in the first place, while also allowing creators to tell fresh, original kinds of stories and express ideas not possible with a more traditional battle format. This is all sounding a little abstract and out there, so let's nail it down with the authors of Bakuman's previous work, an obscure, little-known title called Death Note. Death Note was originally published in late 2003, and what's interesting about this period of Jump is that the rest of the magazine was filled nearly entirely with either straight-up battle manga or sports titles, making the slow-paced cerebral conflicts of Death Note a strange but compelling entry for Jump. If somehow you haven't read or watched Death Note, it's the story of Light Yagami, who finds a mysterious notebook which kills anyone whose name is entered into it, prompting Light to take up the title of Kira and cleanse the world of all criminals, only for him to be pursued by the mysterious international super detective known as L, the two entering a war of misdirection and espionage as Light attempts to discover L's true identity, while L seeks to bring justice to the one known as Kira. Like a lot of great shonen series, the drama of Death Note came from the rivalry that existed between these two characters. But unlike a lot of more traditional shonen, the language the battle played out in was entirely different. Where in a more traditional battle series, a devastating physical attack might be a dramatic turning point in the conflicts. But in Death Note, it was when one character outmaneuvered the other by causing them to give away information that left them at a disadvantage. And so despite the fact that there was no physical combat, Death Note's duels felt dangerous and exciting, and critically, that feeling was also conveyed by the visuals of the anime. The Death Note anime was directed by Tetsuro Araki, a man made famous by his ability to direct exciting and insane action scenes. If you've ever seen the boob Matrix shot from High School of the Dead, yeah, that's this guy. But this time, he's using his abilities to give tiny, seemingly insignificant little actions, like writing in a notebook, weight and consequence by using extreme close-ups, sweeping dynamic camera angles, and jagged, punchy editing. Meaning that while Death Note is really just a show about a boy writing in his diary, it always has this massive, bombastic feel, to the point that a lot of these scenes are kind of absurd, but I think that absurdity only adds to the enjoyment of this kind of storytelling. Jeff2 has a video on this subject. I will confirm that the rumors of Jeff2 and I hating each other are true, but even a broken clock is right twice a day, and he did okay on that one. Death Note was a smash hit, selling tens of millions of copies, adapted into 6 movies and 7 different video games, and is still today regarded as one of the best anime for people who don't watch anime. I have friends who actively mock me whenever I wear one of my several Dragon Ball Z t-shirts, but have read and enjoyed Death Note, and I think a big part of that is how successful the series was at capturing what makes a battle anime so exciting, but distilling it into a format more palatable to your average media consumer. The success of Death Note shows the potential power of this kind of storytelling, but there's been a lot of lesser-known non-battle battle anime that retain that same feeling of excitement and tension while also forgoing traditional battle formats. And particularly anything by Nobuyuki Fukumoto. From Mahjong to Office Management, this guy is basically the king of this kind of storytelling. I would describe the more tense moments of some of his stories as genuinely unbearable. He's a master of locking his characters in intense psychological battles and raising the stakes to near excruciating levels. The only reason this video isn't entirely about Kaiji Ultimate Survivor is because that video already exists because I already made it. Other series like Liar Game strip out the pretense of battle nearly entirely, focusing only on a very simple set of rules, but with a heavy focus on applying psychological pressure to your opponents and waiting for them to crack. Up until now, we've mainly talked about series that replace physical battles with psychological ones. But the great thing about non-battle series is their appeal is potentially a lot broader than that, as you can replace the idea of battle with basically anything. Cooking, science, acting, to the point that I'd say non-battle series are the cross-pollination of traditional shonen battle with any other genre. And it's here where things start to get really interesting, because we could potentially have a shonen battle manga about something like making comic books, which brings us tidily back to Bakuman. Bakuman follows the story of our artist-writer duo as they attempt to create a manga that will take them to the peak of Shonen Jump, the battles this time being the pages of Weekly Shonen Jump itself, as the different artists fight to become the #1 series of the magazine every week in the reader popularity polls, the top series climbing ever closer to the hallowed ground of anime adaptation, while those on the bottom plummet towards cancellation. What makes it feel like a legitimate battle series is how Bakuman uses the conventions of traditional battle titles to build its story. There's everything from overpowered rival characters to the learning of new, more advanced techniques to even an ongoing desire to grow and become stronger. And critically, Bakuman isn't just written like a battle series, but it's drawn like one as well. In the same way Death Note's direction works to give the minute physical actions weight and drama, Obita's artwork does the same for Bakuman. He uses dramatic, forced perspective to make the simple act of drawing feel like these characters are unleashing these massive special attacks. He draws the characters in these exaggerated, expressive poses that convey the passion and energy they have for creating manga, and lays it all out with this loose, chaotic paneling that makes the more dramatic moments of the story feel like a legitimate fight. Bakuman is intense and exciting, but the final part of what makes it great is that it also has this weird, meta-fictional charm to it. It's the story of an artist-writer duo creating a non-battle battle manga for a fictional version of Shonen Jump, while also in reality being a non-battle battle manga written by an artist-writer duo for the actual real-life Shonen Jump. And while that is interesting to think about in a reality-bending kind of way, it also means that Bakuman has this super interesting insight not just into Jump the magazine, but the process of creating comics themselves. And this is what I love about non-battle series. They have the potential to open us up to entirely new worlds. Anything can potentially be the subject for a non-battle series, and if you don't believe me, I want to take a moment and talk about one of my favorites, The Tears of God, a non-battle battle series about wine tasting. Look, I swear to God this is good. Also known as Drops of God, it follows the story of Kanzaki Shizuku, who from early childhood underwent brutal training from his father, an elite wine critic, who would feed his son on a diet of bitter fruit, force him to smell belt leather for hours, and have him memorize the taste of knives and pencils, all to help develop a highly sophisticated palate so he could one day become the greatest wine taster of all time. Only for Shizuku later in life to discover that his father also has a second son, one also highly trained in wine tasting, with the two becoming bitter rivals in their battle to inherit their father's legacy and discover the ultimate wine, the Tears of God. And if that plot sounds familiar, it's because it's the exact plot of Grappler Baki, only with wine tasting instead of fighting. Tears of God is compellingly told and beautifully illustrated, but a lot of the fun of the series is seeing how something as passive as wine tasting is framed as a combative contest, with a character's expertise in wine giving them the technique to unleash a wine's true flavor and allowing them to taste the secret message of each bottle. And if you think that sounds insane, it really is. One wine tastes like the rock band Queen, another like saying goodbye to your mother, and yet another like killing children. It's weird, but part of the fun of non-battle series is seeing subjects depicted with an absurd level of intensity. And in this case, watching people be very, very, very serious about wine. And I know it's successful because it actually kind of made me give a shit about wine tasting while also being so warmly received by the wine tasting community that Tears of God started to spike the market value of many of the wines featured in it. If something like Tears of God can work in a battle format, that essentially opens the floodgates. Anything can be the subject of a battle series, and those subjects can potentially convey new, different kinds of stories. And that, friends, brings us to our final series of the video, and one of my favorites from last season, Kaguya Love is War. Kaguya Love is War is like a combination of everything we've talked about today. It's a psychological war between two characters. It turns seemingly mundane interactions into heart-stopping battles, and uses the hallmarks of battle manga to express something not possible in a more traditional battle format. Kaguya Shinomiya is the proud aristocratic daughter of a wealthy family. Mayuki Shirogane is the stoic, accomplished student body president. The two together being popular, attractive, well-respected members of the student council, who are also totally in love with each other. But there's a problem. Neither Kaguya nor Mayuji are willing to sacrifice their pride by admitting their affection, both being assured of their own superiority and ability to make the other person confess first. And so the two enter a war of emotional manipulation, trying to force each other into a position that they have to show some sign of affection, and in doing so causing them to lose ground in this battle of romantic attrition, with each episode broke into 3 distinct matches, with a winner and a loser declared at the end of each. One of my favorite battles of this show starts when our two protagonists find themselves facing a rain-drenched walk home. Both characters know that if they're seen walking under the same umbrella, it could be interpreted as the two being in an intimate relationship, and so the one who offers shelter to the other could be seen as attempting to initiate that intimacy. Both claim to have forgotten their umbrellas, which is of course a lie on both parts, and the battle begins. Mayuki takes the offensive, questioning how Kaguya, with her mansion full of servants, could have possibly been let leave her home without adequate protection from the rain. But without any real information to back it up, Kaguya casually sidesteps Miyuki's accusations, Mayuki completely unaware that he's now fallen into Kaguya's trap. Kaguya having engineered this entire scenario, including carefully monitoring the weather forecast and slashing the tires of her own driver's car. Earlier in the conversation, Mayuki claimed that he had forgotten his umbrella because he hadn't seen the morning weather report. But Kaguya, having done her research, knows Mayuki took the train to school instead of cycling. Something he would have only done if he'd known it was going to rain. A piece of information he only could have had if he checked the morning weather forecast. Meaning, he did check the weather report. He did remember his umbrella. And why don't they both peer into his bag to confirm it? Scenes like this are what make Kaguya so much fun. Whether the characters are trying and failing to play volleyball or just eating at a tokatsu restaurant, it always has this big battle feel to it. But what makes the show really special is the story it tells through these battles, slowly peeling away the mask of both characters and showing them as the shy, flawed people they really are. Both Kaguya and Mayuki are arrogant and prideful, but the more we learn about them, the more we see that these battles are really just a way for both characters to guard themselves against their own insecurity. And that's what I think's kind of amazing about this show. It takes the conventions of a battle anime and somehow uses them to tell a story about the simple fear of vulnerability. And, I mean, we've all been there. We've all been afraid to put ourselves out there with someone we really like for fear of what might happen if we do. And the fact that Kaguya manages to capture that universal fear of intimacy while also telling a story with the hilarity and intensity of a traditional battle manga, hell, that is why it's my favorite show of the year so far. If I've sounded dismissive of traditional battle series in this video, I don't mean to. I love them with a fire. I have spent most of my time on YouTube trying to express and justify. And that's also why I get excited when I see the core of what makes these series great being expressed in new, original ways. I think battle as a genre still has a tremendous amount of unexplored potential. And with series like Dr. Stone and Promised Neverland becoming some of the biggest titles of the current age, I can't help but be excited for the potential of battle series yet to come. Friends, thank you for joining me today. I really hope you enjoyed this video. And hey, if you did, why not saunter over to patreon.com/super-eyepatchwolf, where you can become an official member of the Eyepatch Wolf Pack with all these stunningly attractive people right here. And whether you are a past, present, or future patron, I just want to thank you so much for letting me do this on a full-time basis. Special shoutouts this week to Pokecirus, Greta, Gabba Scabba, L. Or Hull, Rafterman, Anne O'Leary, and Never Ran Before. As always, find me on twitch.tv/super-eyepatchwolf, hosting the Let's Fight a Boss video game podcast, or on Twitter @eyepatchwolf. Friends, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.